Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Adobe XD Daily Creative Challenge. My name is Howard Pinsky, Senior XD Evangelist here at Adobe, and I hope you're all doing well on this Tuesday afternoon. If you are tuning in live here on Behance, let me know who you are and where you're tuning in from. And if you're watching on YouTube, head on over to behance.net/Adobe Live so I can see all of your magical faces. We've got Richard and Juhi and Tia and Joshua, Sarah and Richard and Faisal, Cornell, Sam, Susan, Aaron. Welcome everyone. Sarah, great to see familiar faces, new faces. I'm just happy to have all of you here. So this is day number, I don't know what day it is. Day number, let's see, 6. Day number 6. I lose track of the days. And specifically because we've switched things up a little bit. So last week we tackled the web design for this particular service. And this week we're switching things up and we're going mobile. So if we go over to the behance.net/challenge/XD landing page, hey, Paco's in the house. The glasses are back. Boop, there they are. You're going to get all the information about these daily creative challenges. Press the big blue button at the top if you want to be notified when new challenges are released. Every single day you're going to receive one of those challenges. Did you have new sound effect for us, Howard? I might have a new sound effect. I got to think one up. But maybe every single stream will do a new sound effect. It'll be fun. You can also join us in our community chat over on Discord. We've got 50,000 designers in Discord. That's insane. That's a lot of people. You can get all the information about the challenge here. You can see what's new in Adobe XD. And by the way, if you go to twitter.com/Adobe XD, I also posted on my Twitter, we sneaked a new feature coming this month, multiple flows. I'm not going to go too in depth in what that is, but the video on the Twitter account will explain most of it. So go there, check that out. And you know, we're coming up to Adobe Max, which is going to be online this year. It's going to be free. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on at Adobe Max. And there's going to be some pretty fun, exciting updates for Adobe XD and all of our other products. So stay tuned for that. So hop into Discord, have a good time. Watch us live every single day, basically all day. I'm here at about 2 o'clock Pacific time to 2:30, and next week we're going to have a new guest. Yes, Sam posted the link. Head on over there and check out the sneak teaser video that we posted. Good stuff coming. And you can share your work in Discord or on Behance using the keyword XD Daily Challenge. So, recap. Last week we tackled the landing page, a live support chat widget, the features overview using stacks, which is one of the newer features in XD, the sign in and sign up experience. Yesterday we tackled the home screen, and then today we're going to be talking about scrollable charts using another new feature, scroll groups. It's going to be a lot of fun, really expanding upon your prototype. Ariana's saying, yay, I get to go to Adobe Max this year. You absolutely do, and every single one of you can go to Adobe Max this year. I'm going to be hosting a few sessions, doing some live stuff, of course, making videos and all the new features. So there's going to be a lot of fun stuff coming up. And of course, all of our other amazing people are going to be doing crazy things, probably videos, sessions, live streaming, who knows? It's going to be fun. All right, let me hop over to Adobe XD, and that's not what I want. That's actually a preview for a video I'm working on. Nobody saw that. Not a new feature, but something fun I'm working on. And this is the template for today. Joshua was saying, when is it going to be? It's going to be, go to max.adobe.com. I believe it's like October 17th or October 20th. I don't know days anymore. It's sometime in October, I believe. If I'm wrong, Sam will correct me. So here is the template for today. Again, we are going to be designing out a scrollable chart for this mobile app that we're working on. Here's some great inspiration you can get down here at the bottom to kind of get an idea of what we're going to be doing. And then over here to the right, we have the home screen that we worked on yesterday. And if you didn't participate yesterday, not to worry. You can always hop over to the Behance Daily Challenge landing page, press this button right here, the Get Started button, and you will be able to download exactly this file. And you can use it for whatever you want. Personal projects, commercial projects, I don't care. I built this so you can use it for whatever. So here we go. We've got this section over here, and this is sort of like a portfolio section, right? And maybe, just maybe, to get a little bit fancy before we actually dive into the chart, October 20th to the 22nd. Thank you, Sam. I knew it was in that ballpark. At least I didn't say like September or November. That would have been weird and awkward. So maybe to get a little bit fancy, we might want to try out a background blur. Now, you got to be careful with background blurs. And I was just working on a background blur in that other thing you may have just seen a second ago. When you turn this on, you probably don't want this, right? Because it's going to make adding content to this area a little bit difficult. Very difficult. So what you'll want in this case, you'll want to really bump up the brightness. And then you'll probably also want to bump up the transparency, which is essentially going to take the fill color. In this case, it's a nice white, and it's going to bring some of that color back into the container that we're working with. So as you can see here, there's a little subtle difference. If I turn off the background blur, turn it back on, a little bit of purple bleeds through, and of course we have these cards up here, right? So those will kind of bleed through as well, just a little bit, very subtle. So, use it to your discretion. I'm gonna bump it up just a little bit more. It makes a little bit of, I can notice it, and it makes me happy to add a background blur, right? Some of you might be thinking, who cares? You can hardly see it, and that's fine. It makes me happy. So, we've got our portfolio section here, and we want a chart in this specific area. So this is what we're going to do. There's a few ways to create a chart, and you may have seen me in the past grab a line and drag out a line like this, right? And then you can double click, access the line. But we're going to fill out the area a little bit more than we previously have. So I'm going to grab a rectangle, the good old rectangle, and I'm going to draw one out. And I've got my guides to help me out throughout this process, right? And I may want to bring in, Sarah says, I'm down with background blurs. I agree. And Aaron says, I like the effect of the cards bleeding through. I do too. So we've got this, rectangle that we're working with, and we may want to bring in some of the color of these cards at the top. So what I'm going to do is, instead of a solid fill, let's go for a linear gradient. And maybe the top color will be this color up here. And the bottom color, we're going to start by sampling that color as well. But maybe I'll just bring out some of the color just a little bit so it's a little bit lighter. Very subtle difference, right? All right. And my head is covering. Catherine says my head is covering. You know what? You're probably right, Catherine. Give me 1 second. I can definitely move my head over to the side, and boop, there I go. All right, that should do it. Hopefully I'm over to the other side now. Thank you for pointing that out. So we've got our rectangle here that we're going to use for a chart. Now, because we want a scrollable chart, we also want charts to be able to go in the past. So you can imagine in this particular case, you might have, today over here, yesterday, the day before. This is basically a week, right? And then you can scroll over this way over here, and you'll be able to access previous days. So what we're going to want to do is extend this outwards. There we go. We want to extend this chart outwards. And once we get to a scroll group, we'll be able to contain that all within this particular chart. All right. We got a voop and a boop. Yes, we do. All right. So what we have here, we have this chart, which I'm going to rename in my layers panel, chart. And very similar to working with the line, which we've previously done using by creating a chart, we can double click on this particular rectangle to convert it into a path. You can also use Command or Control 8 or under the object menu down to path and then convert to path. Lots of ways to convert to a path. Now, once you do that, you're able to go through and start adding in the different points. If there's anyone recording the sound effects, we should get, one day I'm just going to sit down, put my mic on, and just record some sound effects and just let you all do what you do with sound effects. So I'm going to just go ahead and click and click. It doesn't have to be perfect. Of course, if you do need pixel perfect perfection, then you could draw out some guides, turn on the grid, that sort of thing. You can do a lot of things to make sure that all of your points are as accurate as possible. As you can see, mine are not very accurate, but that's okay, right? I'm going to leave it up to all of you to do some magical things. There we go. So we've got our points. Now, of course, if you were to simply grab these points and start moving them around like this, we're going to get very harsh lines. And depending on your app, that might be the direction you want to go. But in this case, we've got a lot of curvy lines and corners on this particular design. So I'm simply going to double click on each of them to convert them into curves. Whoops. I'm going to double click and just basically go through this entire chart, even the areas that are off the artboard, which we will be able to access later. And now that they're nice and curvy, I can just go ahead and start moving things around. You can either click and drag, or you can use the arrow keys on your keyboard, whichever works for you. So I'm going to go through just like I did before with, adding the actual points. I'm just gonna go through and move these around. Maybe this day was a terrible day. You know, this day's probably worse. But things have been picking up, right? So I'm gonna drag this down, and now we have this great looking chart going across our artboard. Now, we may want a few additional things inside of this chart, but before I get to that, let's go ahead and actually contain it inside of a scroll group. So we've got our chart selected, and of course, if we did go ahead and press the play button at the top right to launch the preview, there's nothing we can really do about it. We can see that it goes off the side of the artboard, but we can't move anything. We can't scroll, we can't click and drag, nothing's really working. So what we'll want with the chart selected, right over here to the right, we've got these three options. They're fairly new in Adobe XD. We can create a horizontal scroll group, a vertical scroll group, or a scroll group going in both directions. So if you're working on a map, for example, you can do that. But in this case, we do want a horizontal scroll group. And it's going to automatically set up some bounds, but of course we can drag this inwards just like that. And now we have this chart contained inside of this scroll group. So now, press the play button at the top, and we can either use a trackpad or you can click and drag, and we can scroll through and we can see our chart just like that, right? Super fancy. Now, since we do have a lot of curved corners on this particular design, you know, we've got these cards here, we've got, you know, circles and circles down here, we might want to round out the corners down here at the bottom too. So what you're able to do, you're actually able to mask your scroll group inside of a shape. I'm going to name this. I'm going to grab a rectangle and I'm going to draw one out from the top down to the bottom. Let's go ahead and round out these corners just a little bit like that, right? Let's go for, I don't know, 18 pixels. We'll see what that looks like. And with this particular shape selected inside of the layers panel, I'm going to also select the chart scroll group. So I'm holding down the shift key and clicking. And then under the object menu, we can go ahead and mask with shape. And all of a sudden, it's taken that chart with the sharp corners at the bottom, and it's just given it a little bit of curviness down at the bottom, right? So now I can scroll through and we've got everything contained nicely within that scroll group and mask. Now, speaking of containing things, what's nice about scroll groups is you can continue to add elements inside of it if you wanted to. So for example, maybe inside of it, we want to be able to hover over certain areas and maybe see how much money we've made or lost in that particular day, right? So what we're going to do is this. We're going to go down here and we're going to make sure we're inside of the scroll group, and we're going to grab a little ellipse and we're going to drag one out just like this, right? Perfect, that looks pretty good. Now, what we're going to do is we want to define some colors. So for this one, we might want the inside to be white, which is selected right now, but we might, just to separate it from the background, because if we do that, it kind of gets lost, right? We may want to pull in some of the colors that we're using for this particular design. And if I go over to my assets panel, which I have to edit this particular color because I did make a change, what I can do is I can right click and apply as border to this selected shape, or you can go ahead and select the eyedropper tool beside border and click on the color if you wanted to. And I'm going to make it a little bit larger, just like that, right? So as we scroll through, that magical dot stays in place, which looks great. But we may also want to add some, maybe a hover effect, for example, right? So here's what we're going to do. We are going to grab our rectangle tool. I'm going to draw one out like this. And I want to stress one more time, like I've stressed many times in the past. Many of you are probably like me, where you design very much zoomed in. Right now I'm zoomed in 668%, and things look fantastic, right? I can round out these corners and it looks great. I can change the fill to, let's say, a dark color, maybe drop the opacity a little bit to have some of that color bleed in from the background. Things are looking wonderful, but you've got to zoom out once in a while because it looks great here, but it may not look great when you actually preview it. So just hit the preview button. That looks okay, but many times it may not, right? So just keep that in mind. So we've got this here, and maybe we want some sort of an arrow pointing downwards. So I'm going to grab my polygon tool, shortcut key Y, drag one out like that. Maybe I'll just flip it. Bloop. I think that was a new one. Bloop. And I'm going to position it right about here. You also have these handles on the inside. You can round out the corners just a little bit of your polygons if you wanted to, or a lot, but I'll just do a little bit just like that. And for this particular shape, because these are sort of the same element, we can combine them using a Boolean object. So I have both selected, and I did that just by holding down my Shift key and clicking on the unselected object. And right here at the top, I can go ahead and press the first Boolean option, which is add. And it's going to combine those two shapes, and it's going to take the styling that I created on the first shape and apply it to the second, which is pretty fancy, right? And again, preview, see what things are looking like, move it up a little bit, and that looks pretty good, right? And Joshua is saying, I missed something about it, where did it go? I didn't know the trick for the border. So he may have been talking about being able to apply a color from your assets panel as a border. So I have this shape in particular selected. If I wanted a border on this shape, I can right click on any of the colors in my assets panel and apply as border. It's gonna do its thing, right? That's actually kind of cool. It might be too much purple, but it's kind of cool. So we've got this looking pretty good, and now we might want some sort of a indication of how much money this particular dot is. So I'm going to just dive in here, and let's say this is, I don't know, $39,230. Wouldn't it be nice, right? And for this, let's go ahead and see. I can actually just move this over to the side so I can see it update in real time as I'm designing. The Babus font, the typeface looks pretty good actually. I was debating on whether to go back to Sophia Pro. You know what? I think the Babus typeface is going to work. I think that's going to work. So I'm going to make sure to center it, pop it right about there. And what I can also do is, a lot of people didn't know about the right clicking. So yeah, do that. It's fun, right? I would also like to see if anyone from the XD team is watching, maybe a shortcut to apply as a border, or at least get the eyedropper tool from borders. That'd be fun too. All right, so we've got these objects selected. And what we can do, we can actually combine them or group them into either a component or a group, just like that. And this could be Callout. And we can turn on padding, for example, right? And this will allow us to actually, as we change this, right? If we add more numbers like that, it's going to automatically expand. Now that's a lot of money. I wish I had a fraction of that, but turning on padding on an object will allow, it'll look at the background and the topmost layers, and it'll just expand as you're typing it out. Now you might be noticing that this guy in the middle is also expanding. Maybe you want that, maybe you don't. If you don't, you can dive in here and just make sure that fixed width is selected so that when you are typing, it more or less stays the same, right? All right, there we go. So that's looking pretty good. Now, in the initial state, once we create this component, we probably don't want this particular element to be visible. We only want it to be visible upon click or hover. Now, because we're designing for a mobile app, hover doesn't really apply. So in that case, it would be on tap. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna select our ellipse and we're gonna select our callout. We're going to turn both of these into a component. So I have both selected. I'm going to either right click and press make component, Command and Control K. You can do it in your assets panel, over to the right in the properties inspector. There's a million ways to create a component in XD. So I'm going to go ahead and press this plus button and we have our main component. I can rename it in my assets panel. Helps if I can spell correctly. There we go. And then, again, by default, we don't want this particular callout to be displayed. So I'm going to hop into this component and just hide it, just like that. Just pressing the little eyedropper or eye tool, show tool, whatever. I don't know what this thing is called. Just pressing that, it'll hide that callout. And now what we can do is over to the right, we can add in a new state. Again, hover doesn't really apply for mobile. You can do it if you just want to see how it works, but we're going to go ahead and press a new state. And this will be callout, for example. And with this selected and created, we can just dive back into the state and turn it on, just like that. So now we have our default state and our callout. Now, if this was created as a hover state, you'd be able to press the preview button and you'd be able to hover over it and it would automatically show. But because this is not a hover state, it's not wired up by default. So what you'll want to do is hop into prototype mode right here at the top, boop, and with any element or the entire component selected, you can click on the blue handle over to the right, and that will sprout out this very cute wire. and you'll be able to choose a tap trigger from the properties inspector over to the right. And once that's done, you can choose a destination. In this case, we only have one additional state. So I'm going to go ahead and press that. Now it's going to default to auto animate. And if there were changes that you want to see animate, then you can select that. But because in this case, it's simply going from nothing to something, we can just go with transition. And we probably don't need any sort of animation. So I'm going to set it to none. We can also go to our callout state, and maybe you can tap away from it. So I'm going to just click on that and go to our default state. There we go. So we've got our default and our callout, right? So I'm going to go ahead and press the play button. And now that it's wired up, let me move this over. I can simply click, bloop, and click again to turn it off, right? Fancy. So now that we have this one state created, we can essentially add additional ones inside of this scroll group. So I can just go ahead and duplicate this. Maybe I can move this over here. And of course you can do this to every single point on your chart, but probably don't have time for all of them, but we'll see. So for this one, I can dive in here and override this. This is a little bit more than 39,000. So I'll just change this to, let's say 41,000, I don't know, 34, right? And again, because we enabled padding on that Boolean object and the callout, it automatically resizes. I'm going to go back to my default state. Let's create another one over here. This was not a very good day. Go to callout, change the number. Let's say this was, I don't know, 22,528. Just banging on my keyboard, typing random numbers, right? And we'll do one more, right? We'll put one over here. This was a little bit of a better day. Callout. And this might be 29,000, whatever that is, right? Perfect. All right, so we now have a few points created on this particular chart. Some of them are extending off the artboard, but because they are still contained inside of the scroll group, I can press the play button to launch the preview. I can scroll through, and because we added the tap trigger on the main component, it automatically adds that tap trigger on any other ones. So I can simply tap and close it, or I can just tap on several of them just to open them, and they're all contained. Now, what you might be noticing is right here at the top, because we have that mask, it's kind of masking it a little bit, right? You may want that, you may not want that. So maybe at the top, we may not necessarily want the rounded corners. So anything up there maybe just isn't rounded out. So that for there, I can just pull these back just like that. I can also pull this up a little bit just to make a little bit of extra room, because if we did have one, let me actually go back. If we had this point, for example, up here, right? And this was a really good day. So go to callout, change this number to 50,000, whatever that is. And we were to play this and click on this, you can't really see anything because we have that mask up there. So at the top, just to give a little bit of breathing room, just go ahead and select the mask in your layers panel, which is the shape at the very top of a mask group, which I should probably name at some point. And just, you know, pull it on up. And now we can see it, right? So again, you can just scroll through, see all of your points. You can click on, click off, and you can just have a grand old time. And you know, because we are using components, this is the main component, the one with the solid diamond. If you did need to make changes stylistically or structurally to these particular objects, you simply need to just change one. So I can dive in here, I can change the ellipse. Maybe I wanted, I don't know, the border to be a little bit thicker or a little bit thinner. I can easily do that. I can change the color to whatever I want, and it's going to propagate across all of them. But I kind of like that purple. It kind of works. All right, so that is just about going to wrap it up for today. As a reminder, yesterday we tackled basically all of this except the chart, which was a lot of fun. And many of you in Discord are posting some really exciting, really creative ideas, not just finance, but basically anything. And like I mentioned in the past, if you feel comfortable and you have a really cool idea, definitely take this and take it in your own direction, right? I love seeing that stuff. And then today we explored scroll groups and how you can use them to contain things like charts. And, you know, I have a video on YouTube and also letsxd.com showing you how you can create maps and software experiences, a lot of different things using scroll groups. But you know what? We're going to leave it at that. We're going to get a little bit more in depth tomorrow with some really cool stuff. And that's going to wrap it up for me for today. A big thank you to Joshua and Ariana and Alma, Aaron and Richard and Fasal and everyone else joining me today. A big thank you. Stick around in just a few minutes. We have Andrew Hockrattle and Julia coming up with Design in the Dark. That should be a lot of fun. And I will see you all tomorrow, same time, same place. I'm going to go work on a new video, which will be out, hopefully, within the next few days. I'll see y'all later.